You're listening to the Belmar Bites podcast, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Belmar Bites podcast. I am super excited today to be joined by two of my colleagues, and these two are amazing individuals, and I think it's probably better that I let them introduce themselves rather than me do that. But so why don't we go ladies first? Alice, why don't you kick us off just with a quick intro?
Yeah, I love a good introduction. Not. I am fairly new to the Belmar team, but have had quite a long history recently with case management, and came over from with the 10th Avenue acquisition back in December. And I am, I guess, for lack of a better term, I'm like the solution architect of this CareReady quick start that we have. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit. I'm also a Salesforce consultant and support clients every day with their various needs.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the pod, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, Tom Kadota, solutions engineer here at Belmar. Just passed my 5 years here, so that's been exciting. I'm supporting Alice and our sales team in supporting the pre-sales and sales process of the CareReady projects that are kind of coming in our doors. So
Awesome. Well, I didn't even really introduce off the start, that we were talking about CareReady, but I guess here we are. We are talking about what we call the CareReady solution, and we as an organization have been implementing Salesforce for 15 years. We've been working with nonprofits and foundations and health and human services organizations and a whole bunch of others across our journey. And certainly in the last few years, Alice, you introduced it well. We got connected to the organization that you were with previously at 10th Ave, and you guys had built this CareReady tool. And so we were intersecting on customers, and we were delivering part of a project. You guys were delivering part of a project, and now you guys are part of our team. And but we've got this CareReady solution. So I guess just for the benefit of the audience, why don't you introduce what is CareReady, and like where? And then there's a whole bunch of questions I'm sure that will come from that. But let's start with what is CareReady?
It's essentially an accelerator for nonprofit cloud for Salesforce, for specifically designed with CalAIM programs in mind, but not limited to CalAIM programs. That's just where it really shines. And so we saw a need for case managers to reduce duplicate entry, have a more streamlined way of getting into Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud and case management. But there's a lot of setup that goes into that, a lot of configuration that doesn't come out of the box with Salesforce. And so we were able to, first of all, take care of all of that configuration in a quick start fashion, but also build on top of Salesforce standard functionality to handle some of the common issues that we were hearing among CalAIM case management firms.
Okay, awesome. Uh, so Tom, I guess when you think about uh, one of our teams gets introduced to an organization that may have a need for this, um, why do we lead with this? And we don't always lead with this, but when we do, why do we lead with it versus more of a custom solution?
yeah, that's a great question. I think that with the state mandates surrounding enhanced care management, community supports, CHW, and the actual technology providers that they use on the ground. While with that in mind, and while CalAIM is a awesome initiative, the data and billing requirements can end up becoming kind of an administrative nightmare for some of these organizations. And what we have tried to do with CareReady is essentially building a single source of truth and bridging a gap between kind of those EHR records and the social drivers of health, and how care managers provide benefits. So it automates and takes care of the painful stuff. Because what is it, Alice? I think up to like 40% of some of these care managers' time sometimes could be spent on administrative, filing and documentation, which, a lot more of that time can be spent with their clients. And our goal is just to help ease that pain and kind of streamline that workflow.
Okay, awesome. Um, so Alice, you'd referenced, I think you said quick start. I was thinking accelerator. Like there's different sort of labels that we can attach to this, but just I guess for those that are listening that may be considering Salesforce and have not heard that term before, what is a quick start or what is an accelerator, and why would we use something like that?
It's essentially pre-configured metadata. That's too technical for our conversation today, I think, but it is deployable configuration that we can start with. So the way that we approach a CareReady implementation is that we go ahead and put everything in a clean nonprofit cloud org, and then we start the elaboration or discovery where we talk through the specific needs of um, the program for an organization that we're working with. So we spend most of our time on kind of small enhancements and customizations to make it fit an organization, but it would be functional without that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's the difference between, having it take 3 months or more to get up and running on Salesforce and have it actually be functional, to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the size of the program and any other complexities they may have.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing is it's something that we get to install in a new Salesforce environment, and it moves everybody from the starting line to closer to the finish line without actually having to ask the customers the specifics about their organization. And then once we've got this installed, then we can start building on top of it if there's a need for that.
Yeah, and it's defining how program and case management can work in Salesforce, because what we were finding is that most of the clients we were working with really didn't know how they wanted things to work. And so when we started with the discovery first mindset, um, it was a lot of I don't know. And so we had to make assumptions. And as we made assumptions about things over time and found what worked really well for clients, um, we baked those into a process that we could then say, here's how it should work. Now, if it doesn't work that, if you need to do something different, sure, tell us.
Right.
But to give them a starting place. And that's perfect world, I would say too. It doesn't have to be a clean NPC environment.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's
ideal.
ideal state for sure, for sure. Okay, so if you're already using NPC, and what you're hearing today sort of resonates with what your use case is or what your needs are in your organization, we could likely help you with our CareReady solution. Tom, you were gonna
Exactly.
jump in there. What do you got?
Well, I was also going to say, oftentimes when clients are entering the ECM space, as kind of like they're a bit new to the world, Allison and our team have worked with a lot of clients that are typically leveraging a finite number and the same number of care providers, and health plans that have the same requirements. And we understand those in depth. And that's why this use case for CareReady can be applied to multiple organizations. So making that workflow for one organization work also applies to another organization who may be on the same health plan, with the same requirements as well. So as Alice mentioned, it's taking a typical Salesforce implementation that takes months into weeks. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, man, that is music to my ears because we, time to value is a phrase that we often use, and we want to move as quickly as we can, but following a more traditional path, and I'll define traditional as customers made the decision to either buy Salesforce for the first time or they're augmenting their existing Salesforce. Like there's a transfer of knowledge that needs to come from them to us through a process that we call elaboration that uh, puts us in a position where we understand their business and their requirements sufficiently that we can configure Salesforce to accomplish what they've set out to do. So it's really cool when we can collapse those timelines, and we're measuring this in weeks versus months. Um, it's, Alice, maybe just to continue to sort of unpack this. Uh, when you first started working in this space with CalAIM and these customers, and pre-CareReady, um, I'm assuming there was a lot of commonality that you saw across these organizations. And so, can you speak to like what is included in CareReady? And I guess this happened, over the course of time, where it just got better and better as you and the team sort of understood the needs of the customer. But sort of summarize what are the core elements of what can be done within CareReady?
Yeah, so the biggest pain points for most folks in the CalAIM space is processing the inputs from the health plans when they provide something like a member import file or an authorization file, ASF. And so we've automated the process of being able to ingest those records into Salesforce and create the roster of referrals um, that the team is working and know who's got what, who's enrolled in the program and who hasn't yet enrolled, and we're still doing outreach. So on the front end, we have a lot of automation built around the ingestion of those files. And then the middle part is the easy part for the care team. They're just taking care of people and keeping track of what they're doing. We've reduced the amount of data entry and duplicate data entry involved in that middle process. So things like when they log an interaction, Salesforce would have them log an interaction, also record that they provided a benefit. And but first you have to enroll them in the program, and they have to have a case. And if you want to have a care plan, there's all of that stuff. So wherever possible, we've reduced that. So you log an interaction, we automatically enroll them in the program if they're not already enrolled, assign them the benefit if it's not already assigned, and record that we provided that benefit. Whereas the care team is literally just recording their notes and saying it was a phone call and we provided ECM care management. And so the system takes care of that. On the back end, the health plans want reporting back out, and they want a lot of data. And so um, we are able to kind of reverse the process that we do with that member import ingestion and turn what the care team's been doing in Salesforce into a report that's in the format the health plan needs, so that it can be spit out as a CSV and uploaded to their Office Ally or whoever they use to ingest those files.
So I guess in terms of an organization that this would be a right fit for, and Tom, I think you sort of introduced this a little earlier, but like where does it make sense to lead the discussion with, this is a good fit for CareReady versus CareReady may not be the best fit, and we've got to go more of a traditional path. So what are those, like when you're having conversations, what are those things you're hearing that would indicate that we should really go down the CareReady path?
Yeah, oftentimes it's those community-based organizations, human services agencies that are diving into the CalAIM ecosystem, and they are delivering or planning to deliver either enhanced care management, community supports, or deploying like community health workers as well. And they need to track kind of everything from whether it's housing navigation to maybe food insecurity without drowning in spreadsheets. So we built this for organizations who are scaling up um, in this CalAIM specific space. When it may not be a fit is, if they are a pure clinically focused organization with zero social care component. Maybe it's not the best fit. And, while Salesforce can serve, these organizations in other ways, if they're an organization outside of California or non-CalAIM, and they're not dealing with CalAIM specific compliance and reporting, and dealing with the DHCS and stuff like that, maybe CareReady isn't the right out of the box tool for them, where they could maybe approach it from a traditional program and case management side of things. But CareReady is very flexible in its sense. It was purpose built for CalAIM. but is flexible enough to expand beyond just CalAIM programs for those organizations, maybe delivering multiple types of programs there.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, Tom, because while it is a fit for for organizations that are doing CalAIM services, um, many of our clients, that's not all they do. They have internal programs that they're running and services that they provide outside of health plans even funding them. They may be funding those internally through donations. And the program and case management structure and what we've built with CareReady absolutely is still a quick start for that type of application. We just wouldn't necessarily trigger all of the automations that are specific to Cali.
Well, thanks for that that context. Is as for Alice, I think you sort of good segue here you introduced, which is the organizations may be doing more than just where CalAIM our CalAIM services and where CareReady is a fit. And I guess one of the great benefits of Salesforce is it is incredibly flexible. So, what are we seeing sort of outside of the CareReady use case within these organizations? And I sort of certainly both of you can chime in on this, but are organizations starting first with addressing the needs that CareReady is solving and then expanding, or are we seeing it at times in the inverse to that?
One of the things that we've seen is clients who are currently operating in Salesforce on NPSP for other programs, and they want to add CalAIM. They'll start on NPC with CalAIM and then work on bringing their other programs over.
Gotcha. So NPSP or Nonprofit Success Pack. So they've been operating on Salesforce for some period of time, and they're going to start with a new nonprofit cloud or NPC Salesforce org, and then migrate the legacy data over. So okay, well that's interesting. And is it typically programs, or are there other use cases that you've seen?
Typically programs, and I would say that um, they're often planning to continue for some period of time with the legacy programs. So I think what's happening is that they're on this NPSP instance. They have everything built out for their internal programs or whatever, and they can't envision how they could possibly cram CalAIM into that in a workable way. And so that's when they realize, oh, okay, it's time for NPC. This is a great place to start because we do have that accelerator, and then we can fit our other programs into the massive requirements of CalAIM. We can fit it around that. What we can't do is cram the requirements of CalAIM around our existing program structure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. Tom, anything you want to add to that, or
I think Alice nailed that. To be honest, yeah, a lot of our organizations, are adding on ECM service, or a program is transitioning to become an ECM service, and they are also just learning how to navigate that space and requirements, and look to folks like Alice and the rest of our team on guidance on how to meet the requirements of ECM. How does billing actually work? And that's where kind of our expertise in the area in this ecosystem really helps provide value to our clients who are just kind of navigating this for the first time. They may have been delivering case management for their entire organization's lifetime, but ECM may be something that's new, and looking to see how their services translate into this new structure. So that's where we're able to also help guidance aside from just the technology part as well.
okay.
We've also seen some clients who are moving from like a purpose-built application for CalAIM services. Um, I think the updates to the DHCS standards in California prompted some of this because they found that as those standards changed, the purpose built application maybe wasn't working as well for them, or maybe it wasn't working that great from the beginning. And they just finally realized they've got to do something different. We've done a lot of updates recently with the new DHCS standards so that um, essentially it's just saying that the different health plans that fund CalAIM services have to abide by similar data practices on the inbound and the outbound requirements. And up until the last 6 months, it was kind of the wild, wild west. Every payer was different. And so we had a lot of separation between those health plans in CareReady even. And we've been able recently to combine those into really a unified engine for so every payer as they start to really adopt those new standards, um, they're being able to be folded into the universal automation, which has been a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, interesting. Alice, you've actually triggered something in my mind, which is if sort of with a shifting set of requirements, and this is, I mean, this is a very true statement. Nothing is static; everything is constantly changing. So, if these organizations who have built either custom built a purpose solution, or maybe they've bought an off the shelf sort of purpose built solution that is no longer fitting the needs of the organization. Uh, is there a scenario where that's true with Salesforce and specifically with CareReady? And how are we addressing that for these customers who have been on CareReady for some time and perhaps have had to see some changes happen within their CareReady solution?
Yeah, I think for a lot of clients in the CalAIM space right now, they feel like I've heard someone say recently that the health plans just keep changing their data all the time. And it feels that way right now because they've all been in the middle of trying to adopt to this huge requirement to adhere to a standard where they didn't have one before. The reality is they don't change all the time. They change maybe once a year, if that, when they're stable. It's just that they didn't have a standard before. However, as long as we're involved, we absolutely do kind of keep a pulse with the health plans as they change. Usually it's minor things like they start sending the full word yes where they used to send a Y. And so we try to we try to build automation to just um, be ready for all those variations, first of all. And then secondly, we don't build custom code in Salesforce. Um, CareReady is built on declarative automation. So it's using flows, omniscripts, custom objects, custom fields, but it's not using Apex code that you can't access. And so even if we don't maintain a relationship, a Salesforce administrator with some experience with automation absolutely could get in and make especially those minor tweaks, but even a major overhaul if they had to.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm hearing is for somebody that's listening to this and is intrigued, um, the benefit of our CareReady solution is it gets you from zero to partway to the finish line, with the, if you will, the flip of a switch, and then we can build on top of that to your specific requirements. But uh, arguably, even more important than that is just the ability to modify and keep the system up to date. And so, what I'm hearing, Alice, is with a Salesforce administrator, either in-house or an external resource like ourselves who remains involved in that account, you've got a solution that's somewhat future-proof in terms of its ability to just continue to adapt to the changing landscape. So, have I summarized that correctly?
Yeah, well done.
There we go. All right. I guess for folks that are, I guess they've either arrived at this podcast or they're we've shared this content with them. Like, what are the pain points that that you're hearing these organizations who have not yet made the decision to go to Salesforce, or maybe they're on NPSP and they're sort of contemplating what the future looks like. What are some of the pain points that that you're hearing from them?
I'd say a lot of it, Alice kind of already mentioned with the changing of requirements from the managed care providers, whether it's simple formatting or value changes. The constant, you know, quote unquote constant change of things does become an administrative burden, but also a lot of the time struggling to ingest the data dumps that come from these managed care providers, or failing audits because maybe their care plans don't map to these specific requirements because of the changing requirements. oftentimes that leads to just a lot of friction with their data, but also chaos with multiple payers. So if they're contracting with multiple care providers like HealthNet, LA Care, Molina, they do need to standardize different authorization and billing workflows, um, they're struggling to standardize those different workflows. And our goal with CareReady is to kind of put that and standardize that into one clean user interface there. What other pain points are you seeing, Alice?
Okay, when you were talking about data, I wanted to interject, but I thought I'd wait. The data that's coming from these health plans on those import and ASF files is not clean either. And so that's the other big pain point that folks have. They send the same information month after month after month. And sometimes it changes and sometimes it doesn't. And with other solutions that we've seen where they try to handle it with code, they don't store the history in Salesforce. And so the client actually loses track of what the history for that client is. And in whole person care, that's just not acceptable. However, we don't want to accept the data as better than the data in Salesforce, because the care team that's actually working with the client, they typically will know if somebody's address has changed. And so when the care plan sends that same address that is old month after month after month, we want to know what they sent, but we don't want to accept it. And so we store it in an accessible place in Salesforce, but we get to make some decisions together. We have our standard decisions, and then the client can say, no, we do want to accept the phone number if they give us a phone number. We trust that health plan. Or they can say, don't override our phone numbers ever, but just keep the history. And that's the default setting. So that messy data coming from the health plan, but an expectation of clean data on the output is such an interesting thing for care providers right now. And we do make it better.
Yeah. Well, by the sounds of it, well, that's great. Listen, I think for me, just from a, sort of pull this back up to 30,000 feet, like just from a business perspective, from an investment point of view, this is a purpose-built solution for a very, very specific use case. And if you have an organization that you feel fits those needs, we certainly would love to share more and introduce you to our CareReady solution. And so, Alice, Tom, thanks for doing this. This has been a fun conversation, and I'm sure lots of people are going to get a lot of value from this, because it's trying to navigate these waters is sometimes tough for our customers, and so I appreciate you guys doing this today, and I'm excited to share this with the community, and we'll get this posted, and we'll have our team share it out, and it's going to be great to just get this out into the market. So thanks you guys for doing this, and thanks everybody for tuning in today, and we look forward to catching you on the next one. This has been another episode of Belmar Bites, brought to you by Belmar Consulting. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or on our website at belmarcloud.com.